Good morning, everyone. So, today we are going to study about the topic nutrient removal from the subject water supply and treatment engineering, module 4. So, in this, basically, we are going to have two nutrients that are going to be removed. So, first one will be your phosphorus, and the second one is nitrogen. Introduction. Phosphorus. Principal sources of phosphorus are man-made chemicals, wastewater, and agricultural runoff. So it is the main cause of eutrophication of water along with the nitrogen. So nitrogen and this phosphorus are the main reason behind the eutrophication process of water. A minimal concentration of 0.005 to 0.05 mg per liter of phosphorus is sufficient to cause the algal bloom. So you can check out, so very small concentration of this is enough to cause this algal bloom. So basically algal bloom is nothing but where your green algae is going to multiply at a much faster rate, because of which the entire surface area of the water is going to be covered with that green algae. So once this happens, so the entire aquatic system or entire lifestyle or life cycle inside that particular water resource will get disturbed. Now, this phosphorus in wastewater exists in three forms. So, first one is orthophosphate, second one polyphosphate, and the third one is organic phosphorus. So, these are three forms in which the phosphorus is going to exist. The removal of this phosphorus can be achieved by two methods. One is chemical and one more is biological. So, biological removal process of phosphorus. So, the presence of phosphate in greater proportion than 10 is to 5 is to 1 may result in eutrophication. So, what do you mean by this is, so BOD to nitrogen to phosphorus ratio, if it goes beyond this particular proportion of 10 is to 5 is to 1, then it may lead to the eutrophication. So, to go in depth about this, so 1 part of your phosphorus, 5 parts of nitrogen, and 10 parts of your biological oxygen demand. So here you can check out, so compared to the BOD and nitrogen, the phosphorus concentration is quite less if it needs to, or else it causes that eutrophication process. So in this three parameters, so phosphate has the least amount of concentration that is required to cause the eutrophication of water. New technologies have been developed for removal of phosphorus using algae. If stoichiometric levels of nutrients are maintained, algae can remove a certain amount of phosphorus. So what do we mean by this is, stoichiometric is, so whatever reaction or whatever consumption or whatever degradation is going to be there, if the left hand side of that, if I just try to show it with this, yeah, so I'll just try to show it here. So here we have some X parameter, so it will react to form your Y parameter, so something like this. So what quantum of X is required to produce what quantity of Y? So basically this what I can say, measurement, or else this particular quantum or weight of all these things which are going to be there. So if these left hand side and right hand side quantities are measured, then you are going to call that as stoichiometric levels. So basically here what will happen, the left hand side will be is equals to the right hand side what we are going to have. Now, yeah, so some treatment plants can remove far more phosphorus than the theoretical bacterial requirement. So this is called as luxury intake. So what do you mean by this is, so in biological removal of phosphorus, we usually use some kind of microorganisms. Okay, so what those microorganisms will do, they will basically consume this phosphorus. Okay, and if the operating conditions are quite proper, then what they'll do is they can consume a bit more quantity of phosphorus, so that is their removal efficiency is going to be much more better. So that particular kind of a process, so that optimal operating conditions if we are maintaining, so that additional removal of phosphorus we are going to call that as luxury intake. So here we are going to explain. So luxury intake is stored in cell wall of bacteria and will be in the form of polyphosphate. So what do you mean by this? So whatever the phosphorus is removed from the water or wastewater, basically it will be stored in the cell wall of the bacteria or microorganism, and in turn that will be in the form of polyphosphate. The Burdino process and Foster process are the two biological processes used for the removal of polyphosphate from the wastewater. Okay, so biological removal of phosphorus. Now if you check out, yeah. So let us first understand what this particular flowchart is trying to represent. So if you check out over here, so it is the biological chemical phosphate removal process. So let us understand first what all points are covered over here. So first, this is our raw waste which is coming up. Then we have primary clarifier, then we have an aeration tank, then we have a secondary clarifier. So clarifiers are nothing but your settling tanks. So if you check out, so the raw wastewater is entering into the initial primary clarifier. So obviously here we are going to get the sludge, and then the supernatant liquid which will be there on top will be transferred to the aeration tank. Now in this aeration tank, through mechanical means or through submerged pipes, so the pressurized air can be passed through, and in turn this aeration process can be done over here. So again, once the aeration process is done, when the entire contents are properly mixed, so then it will move up to the secondary clarifier, right? So here also what will happen, after the settlement, the sludge will be collected at the bottom and the supernatant liquid will be taken out as a final effluent. So this is basically the process that is happening. So let us see in detail regarding what will happen to the sludges now. Now if you check out, so raw wastewater first will pass through the primary clarifier. Initially we are getting sludge. So basically this sludge is what? This is a primary what I can say sedimentation sludge, where basically most of the inorganic particles are going to settle down over here. Now the second thing is, once we come to the aeration tank, then the secondary clarifier what we have, then the secondary clarifier what we have. So basically in this what we are going to do is, if you check out this, I'll just take some another color. Okay, so if you check out only this part of the diagram, so this is nothing but what? Activated sludge process. This is nothing but the activated sludge process which is happening. So in this activated sludge process, what is happening? So from the aeration tank it is coming to the secondary clarifier, then the sludge is settling down over here, and even this sludge, you can see this half portion basically will go for the disposal. And here if you check out, they have written it as phosphorus enriched sludge. So the reason for that is, once we go into the primary clarifier, aeration and secondary, so at that point of time the phosphorus will be what I can say concentrated. So based on the microbial activity, as well as because of that, it will come to the sludge part of it. So here we have phosphorus enriched sludge. So this is again going to go for the what? Phosphate stripper. So this phosphate stripper, in the sense what? It is also like a clarifier, but where we are going to add few of the chemicals. So here basically to be even in this clarifier, if you check out, here also we are getting a sludge. So this sludge is again partially recirculated to the initial compound over here, and few of them is actually being recirculated back to the aeration tank. So again, why this is being done, we'll try to explain now. So phosphorus enriched sludge is there. So along with that, I have even the activated microorganisms. Why I'm calling this as activated? Because aeration process has been done. So all the microorganisms are in a active state. The reason being, they have come from a oxygen saturated area, or else oxygen saturated zone. So because of that, what will happen? This phosphorus enriched sludge, I need to reuse it. So I cannot directly dispose, because already it has few of my things which I require for the treatment. So what will I do? I go for this phosphate stripper, where again partially that sludge is recirculated to the initial stage, and a few things are going to be circulated with the aeration tank. So again, when I add this over here, what is actually happening? I am here if you check out, here it is phosphorus rich enriched sludge, here it is phosphorus stripped sludge, right? So here the concentration of phosphorus in this will be less, because in this phosphate stripper, the supernatant liquid is going to have more quantity of phosphorus. So because of that, here in this phosphorus enriched sludge, what we have, we want to remove this phosphorus, so that I will be left out with enriched sludge. So that is oxygen enriched or activated microorganism enriched sludge. So the same thing is being actually circulated back to the aeration tank over here. And once it is happening, so the same cycle will continue. Now if I check out what happens to the supernatant liquid which is over here from the phosphate stripper, so you can check out, so here phosphate enriched supernatant liquid, so phosphate enriched supernatant liquid will be passing through here. You are going to add lime to that, and once you add the lime to that, so basically here what will happen, you are going to have a precipitated phosphorus. Okay, you are going to have the precipitated phosphorus. So entire this mixture is being again sent up to the primary clarifier. So again in this primary clarifier, what is happening, so what initial sludge we talked about over here, so that sludge will have what, this precipitation. So precipitated phosphorus can be removed out something like this. Okay, so with this particular explanation you can check it out. So whenever you want to remove any nutrient, that is phosphorus, there is no need for you to have a specialized treatment units. So here activated sludge process, we use it in a conventional biological treatment, so the same thing you can use it off, but with a bit of modifications, where you can actually get the complete understanding or else complete removal of these kind of nutrients. So once these sludges have been collected, so these sludges can be dried off in sludge drying beds, and then once they are completely dried off, they can be used for other purposes. Chemical removal of phosphorus. So this phosphate can be removed by chemical precipitation using lime, alum or ferric chloride. So basically that phosphate stripper, what we have studied in the previous slide, basically may work on the same principle. The reactions for these above said are as follows. So basically here what they are trying to say is, so the phosphorus which is in the dissolved form, which may be intact with any of the compound, okay, so I'll explain that, in any of the compound, basically if it reacts with any of the calcium ion, aluminum ion or iron ion, so basically it will convert that into a component of phosphate. So these phosphates are going to become what? Your precipitates. So let us see these reactions. So if I consider this calcium ion, so as per the stoichiometric values, so that is you can see 10 molecules of calcium, 6 of phosphate and 2 of OH minus, that is hydroxyl ions. So here calcium, phosphate and hydroxyl ion will form hydroxyapatite, right? So again this is what, a calcium phosphate along with the hydroxyl ion, the compound. So basically this is a precipitate. So you can check out here, even with the aluminium ion, aluminium plus HNPO4 is indicating, basically H can be replaced with any of that particular compound. So to whatever this phosphorus is being attached and it is in the dissolved form, it can be said in that way. So these two will react. So what will form? Aluminium phosphate plus N into H plus. So right now here H plus means hydrogen we are taking just as a reference. So here what we have done, so phosphate on the dissolved form with connection to some of the element is being converted into aluminium phosphate, which is going to be a precipitate. Similarly iron ion, if it is there, so iron HNPO4, which will give you again iron phosphate plus NH plus. So again this may become what? Any of the compound which the phosphate was initially connected with. So when calcium ions are used, it imparts hardness to the wastewater and hence not preferred. So that is, if you go for this calcium ion, basically calcium phosphate will be created. So which is the source of what? Your hardness. So that's why this is not referred. Whereas aluminium and iron can be used for the removal of chemical removal of phosphorus. Now last one is application of these chemicals may be used in the primary treatment, secondary treatment, or in the tertiary treatment. That is, we can add up these particular ions in any stage or any phase of the treatment. Now the same thing what we have explained, so where all you can add these chemicals for the removal of phosphorus. So if you check out these flow charts, so this particular first part you can call that as primary treatment, this section you can call it as secondary treatment, and this section you can call it as tertiary treatment. So the same thing here, this is primary, secondary, and tertiary. So if you check out this chemical addition, so that is the source of calcium, iron, and aluminum ions can be added in the primary. So insoluble phosphorus will be basically, that is precipitated phosphorus will be generated in the primary section itself. If not, if you want to add it in the biological or secondary section, then you can add it before the aeration and before the secondary clarifier. So even there we'll get the sludge where the precipitate of phosphorus will be there. Or else if you want in a specific treatment designed for the tertiary, so even in the tertiary treatment you can add these chemicals. So again there also in the sludge we are going to get this. So in total, so you can add it in primary treatment or secondary treatment or tertiary treatment. So wherever you add it, so basically there you are going to get your phosphorus. So again this particular things, as I told you, so will be removed biologically or chemically. So again biologically and chemically, so both the things will go hand in hand. So microbes over here in the biological section, as we have discussed in the earlier slides, so they will act on these particular phosphorus, so that luxury index what we have studied in the slides, so basically that will be there, and the excess of that basically will be removed with the chemical reaction. So that chemical reaction will be with the ions of aluminum, iron, and calcium, and in a phosphate stripper these things are going to get removed. Now the nitrogen removal. So nitrogen in the wastewater is found in 4 different forms. So first one is organic nitrogen, second one ammonia nitrogen, third one nitrite, and the fourth one is nitrate. So if you check out, ammonia in the wastewater exists in the form of nitrogen oxygen demand, and it is very toxic to the aquatic life. Okay, so ammonia plus oxygen will give you nitrite plus hydrogen plus water. So sorry, H plus ions and water. So this nitrite which is there, basically what I am trying to say is, which this is very toxic. So even a very low concentration of this is basically lethal to any of the aquatic animals. So that's why as per the drinking water quality standards, so we don't or else we should not have any nitrite in its presence. But fortunately the thing is, this is nitrite is quite unstable. So whenever it is formed in this nitrite, so it will immediately convert it into nitrate. But still, in any case, if nitrite is present, that is not good for us. The presence of excess amount of nitrogen promotes eutrophication process. So as I have told you with respect to the phosphorus, so the same thing happens if nitrogen also is more in the wastewater or in the receiving water quality streams, then even that there is a chance of getting eutrophication. So the sources of nitrogen include natural and artificial sources. Urea is the main artificial source with more than 85% of the total load, more than 85% of the total load. So basically urea, which is used as a what I can say source of nitrogen by the farmers. So whenever they use excess of this urea, so that excess urea during the rainfall, so that will come through the runoff and ultimately they will join the streams. So because of which this urea is actually going to cause main what I can say source of nitrogen for eutrophication. Biological nitrification process. So conversion of ammonia to nitrite. So this is the first step, ammonia to nitrite. So here ammonia plus oxygen in presence of nitrosomonas bacteria. So we are going to get nitrite plus hydrogen ions, water and energy. Now conversion of nitrite to nitrate. So nitrite will again react with oxygen in presence of nitrobacter microorganism. In turn, they are going to form the nitrate and energy. So the important parameters in nitrification kinetics or process are temperature, pH and dissolved oxygen concentration. So here please try to understand this. Whenever we say nitrification process, it is not addition of nitrogen into the water or wastewater. So basically whenever we say removal of this nitrogen, we'll have these two processes, that is one is nitrification and second one is denitrification. So don't confuse or else don't think that nitrification is simply just adding nitrogen. No, nitrification is actually a process where ammonia is converted to nitrate by an intermediate step being in nitrite. Okay, so this is nothing but nitrification process, and similarly denitrification process is conversion of this nitrate into nitrogen gas. So because of which what will happen, that nitrogen gas can escape out of the liquid media whichever it is in. So biological nitrification process. So here let us first go through this flow chart. First we have from the primary treatment we are having this aeration tank, then secondary settling tank, then again aeration tank and secondary settling tank. So again sludge is being returned. So if you check out, basically it is nothing but what? Your activated sludge process, what they are explaining with. Now if you check out, the first thing what they have said over here is carbonaceous oxidation, next is nitrification. So here why these two things are coming out, I'll try to explain here. So whatever the carbonaceous matter is there, so usually this carbonaceous matter will be quite easy to degrade. It will be quite easy to degrade for the microorganism. So even whenever we study regarding the biological oxygen demand, so in your further subjects in your coming semesters you are going to learn these. So whenever I say BOD, so BOD will be of two stages, so that is first stage BOD and second stage BOD, what we call it. So in the first stage BOD, basically it is the carbonaceous BOD that is going to be degraded, and then it will come to the nitrogenous BOD which is going to be there. So this particular flow chart is something similar to that. This entire flow chart is something similar to that. So if you check out, so whenever if you want to have this nitrification process, right, so you need to first go through this carbonaceous oxidation, then only it will come to the nitrification. So without carbonaceous oxidation you cannot go for the nitrification process. So that is even in wastewater or water, whichever contaminants are there, initially the carbonaceous matters are going to get degraded and then the nitrogenous process is going to start up with that. Biological denitrification process now. So denitrification is a process of conversion of nitrate to nitrogen gas. Methanol is added to the wastewater to act as a source of carbon for the microorganisms. So here nitrate, which is already generated in the nitrification process, you are going to add methanol to that, so that nitrogen gas is produced, carbon dioxide is produced, water is produced, along with that hydroxyl ions are produced. So here if you check out, so nitrate, I am adding methanol to this. Why this methanol is used? As here it is mentioned, to act as a source of carbon for the microorganisms. So what the microorganisms will usually do? Microorganisms, okay, so basically what they do, they will use carbon, they increase their number, that is they first develop, okay, they increase their number, they get saturated or else they get robust, their life cycle will be at its peak. So once this is achieved, then they go for the degradation of nitrogen. So basically why methanol is added? Because the microorganisms, this nitrobacter which was discussed earlier, need some source of energy. So methanol will be the source of energy or source of carbon for those, and then the nitrogen gas in this reaction is going to be released. Biological denitrification process. So again here if you check out, so three stages have been mentioned: stage 1, stage 2 and stage 3. So if you check out, in all the three stages it has been explained again with respect to activated sludge process. Okay, so in this what is actually happening, influent is coming in, again we have aeration tank, then we have settling tank. So in this what will happen? High rate activated sludge process organics. So here what will happen? Carbon dioxide and water is released. So here what is happening? So this is nothing but your carbonaceous oxidation, what we have earlier discussed. So that is being completed in stage 1. In the next stage, basically what is happening? Ammonia is being converted into nitrate. That is, this is nitrification process which has been happened. So nitrite is an intermediate product over there. So ammonia to nitrate is happening in the stage 2. Now in the stage 3, it is denitrification process where nitrate is being converted into nitrogen gas. So once it is being nitrogen gas is produced, basically that can escape out of your liquid media. So once that nitrogen escapes out of it, so obviously your supernatant liquid which is coming out of here will be free from what? Nitrogen. So this is how your entire nitrification and denitrification process works. So if you check out what all things we have discussed, we have stage 1 where carbonaceous matter is degraded, stage 2 where nitrification has occurred, and stage 3 where the denitrification has occurred. Now, biological denitrification process. So again as a whole. So if you check out here, again all these different representations are explaining the same thing, theoretical thing what we have learnt in the earlier slides. So if you check out this, so figure 18.14, right? So the flow diagram for complete mixing denitrification process. Okay, so this is what your denitrification process or stage 3, what in the previous slide it was mentioned. So we have what? Your nitrified wastewater which is coming in. So this is going to be what? Your aeration tank, right? So this is nothing but your aeration tank which is there, and over here you are going to put that air. So basically what is happening? Your nitrogen gas is escaping out. Next you have your sedimentation tank where the effluent will be free from this nitrogen gas which has been escaped in the previous stage, and the sludge which is being prepared or else produced is also free from nitrogen. So that's why the same thing is being recirculated as over here. So why this gets recirculated, that is you are going to study when we study the activated sludge process in detail. So in the working principle of this activated sludge process, you are going to understand why we are actually recirculating the sludge back to the aeration tank. Now similarly the second figure, if you see advanced wastewater treatment of a pilot plant. So again stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, same thing. So constant head tank, so that is nothing but this is the inflow over here. So you have activated sludge process which is happening. So supernatant liquid will go into the settling tank, and from there the supernatant liquid will come into what? Nitrification reactor. So nitrification reactor is also what? Your again an aeration tank itself, the same thing. So in this initial stage whatever the sludge is there, so again it is recirculating as we have shown it in this case. Now similarly this inflow over here in the nitrification reactor, supernatant liquid again will go to the settling tank, sludge will recycle back to the aeration tank, and the supernatant of this will come to the denitrification. So in this denitrification what you are going to do, you are going to add methanol where it will act as a source of carbon for the microbes, and because of that what will happen? Again flash aerator. So this is nothing but your aeration tank. If you consider activated sludge process, this itself will act as a aeration tank, and then it will go to the settling tank. So whatever effluent is there, that is nothing but your nitrogen free effluent, and again the sludge will be recycled partly into the denitrification process. So ultimately what the intention of these two figures, what they are showing is, so if you take this activated sludge process as a baseline, then inflow you have one set of aeration tank, then you have a clarifier or a settling tank, what we call it, effluent of or else supernatant of this will go as effluent, here will get sludge, yeah, and out of this partially will be circulated back to the aeration tank. So here as and when we continue with this, okay, so basically you can think of is the same process what just I have told will be repeated 3 times. So in the first time only the carbonaceous matter will be taken out, in the second time the nitrification process will occur. In the third stage or else third time, the denitrification process is going to occur. So this is how you can say biological denitrification process will be occurring. Last one is ammonia stripping. So that is, it is conversion of ammonium into ammonia and gas stripping the ammonia. Okay. So here one more way of removing the nitrogen is ammonia stripping, where ammonium NH4 plus will react with hydroxyl to form ammonium hydroxide, which will form again ammonia gas and then water. So as the pH increases, the ammonium ions is converted into ammonia and vice versa. That is, if the pH is more, so your reaction is going to be what? In this direction. If the pH is less, then it will be in the reverse direction, which is indicated. Now to remove this, we have something, or else we can use something called as stripping method or else gas stripping method. So in this, what is happening? Here you have your water enriched with ammonia, right? So here you have your distribution channels, or these are nothing but the nozzles which are there. Okay, so these 5 things which are there are the nozzles. And next is drift eliminator. So drift eliminators are nothing but some kind of baffle walls. Okay, so what they will do is they will do not disturb these nozzles which are at the bottom, because you want to have the uniform distribution of liquid inside this chamber so that the ammonia stripping can occur properly. Okay, so if it is if there is a wind difference, what will happen? The uniform distribution will not be there, because of which even your gas stripping efficiency will come down. So that's why you are going to have some kind of baffle walls over here. Now apart from that, you can check out, this is the air inlet. What these air will do, this will come here and it will move in the upward direction, but these droplets are coming in the downward direction, and as and when it reacts with those droplets, so the ammonium is being converted into what? Ammonia gas. It is being converted into ammonia gas. So that's why what will happen, the water will come down, get collected over here, and in turn it will be taken out, whereas this gas which is there, which is passing in the vertical direction, basically will be what? Your ammonia gas. So when the water will be added up, so your ammonium will be converted into ammonia. So the same working principle is being used over here, so that the water which is enriched with ammonium will be passed through these nozzles to have uniform distribution, and from the bottom you are going to pass the gas. So when the air will mix up with water, or water interaction will happen, because of this what will happen, your ammonium will be converted into ammonia, and that gas will be taken out through the outlet which is going to be there. This is nothing but the ammonia stripping. Okay, so this is the end of your nutrient removal. So basically, to sum it up, we have 2 things that we have studied. One is phosphorus removal and one more is nitrogen removal. So phosphorus removal can be done with biologically or chemically. Similarly, the nitrogen removal can be done, or else you can divide that into nitrification and denitrification process. Plus you have ammonia stripping. So together all these, it will come under what? Your nutrient removal of water. Thank you.